You hatch from an egg near a hydrothermal vent, 7,000 feet below the surface in the South Pacific. The water here is strange, warm in some spots, freezing in others, shifting constantly depending on how close you drift to the vent. You're tiny, transparent, your body is soft, with no shell yet, just delicate tissue that could tear if you bump into anything too hard. You can't see much. There's no light down here except for the faint red glow from the vent itself. Minerals and superheated water erupting from cracks in the ocean floor. You drift in the water column for a few seconds, then sink slowly toward the seafloor. Your legs twitch. You try to grab onto something, anything, but there's nothing nearby. Then the current pushes you sideways and you tumble across the rocks until you hit something solid. A cluster of other Yeti crabs, hundreds of them, packed together around the vent opening. You crawl between their legs and find a small space near the edge. The water here is warm, almost hot. You settle into the spot and extend your claws forward. You don't know why yet, but something inside you tells you this is where you need to be. You're 2 months old now. You've grown to about half an inch long. Your shell has hardened slightly, though it's still thin and pale, almost white. But the most noticeable thing about you is your claws. They're covered in long, hair-like bristles. CT. They stick out in all directions, making your claws look fuzzy, like someone glued fur onto a crab. You hold your claws out in front of you, waving them slowly in the water near the vent. The water coming out of the vent is filled with chemicals, hydrogen sulfide, methane, toxic compounds that would kill most creatures. But the bristles on your claws are covered in bacteria, filamentous bacteria that feed on those chemicals. You're farming them. You wave your claws back and forth in the chemical plume, letting the bacteria absorb the nutrients they need to grow. After a few hours, you bring your claws to your mouth and scrape the bacteria off with your mouth parts. You eat them. That's your food. That's all you have. The bacteria growing on your own arms. You're 6 months old now. You've grown to about 2 inches. You're still at the vent, surrounded by other Yeti crabs, all of you packed tightly together, waving your hairy claws in the chemical plume. The vent is active today. More water than usual is erupting from the crack, hotter than normal, nearly 750 degrees Fahrenheit where it exits the seafloor. You're not that close to the opening, but you can feel the heat even from where you're positioned. You need to be close enough to feed your bacteria, but not so close that the water cooks you alive. It's a constant balancing act. You wave your claws and feel the temperature rising slightly. Too hot. You take a step backward, away from the vent. The water cools. But now, the chemical concentration is lower. Your bacteria aren't getting as much food. You step forward again, back into the hotter zone. The heat presses against your shell. You hold your position for as long as you can, then step back again. Forward, back, forward, back. This is your life now. Dancing on the edge of a volcanic vent, trying not to get boiled. You're 1 year old now. You're about 4 inches long. The vent is crowded. There are maybe 1,000 Yeti crabs packed into this small area, all competing for the best positions near the chemical plume. You're in the middle of the group, not close enough to get optimal chemical exposure, but not far enough to be safe from the heat. A larger crab pushes past you, shoving you sideways with its body. You push back, but it's stronger. It takes your spot, forcing you a few inches to the side. You try to move forward again, but another crab blocks you. You're stuck in a worse position now, farther from the vent, where the chemicals are more diluted. You wave your claws anyway, scraping what bacteria you can off your bristles and eating them. It's not enough. You're hungry. You've been hungry for months, but there's nowhere else to go. This vent is the only place where your bacteria can grow. If you leave, you starve. So you stay, wedged between other crabs, waving your hairy claws in water that's barely chemical rich enough to keep you alive. You're 2 years old now. You're about 6 inches long, one of the larger crabs in the group. You've managed to push your way closer to the vent, into a spot where the chemical concentration is higher, but the heat is worse, much worse. The water fluctuates between freezing and scalding depending on how the vent pulses. One moment, it's tolerable. The next, it's almost unbearable. You feel it against your shell, seeping through the thin gaps in your exoskeleton. Your legs ache. Your body is constantly stressed, constantly on the edge of overheating. You wave your claws and scrape off bacteria, eating quickly before the next surge of hot water comes. Then it hits. A blast of superheated water erupts from the vent, hotter than anything you've felt before. You scramble backward, pushing through the other crabs, trying to get away from the plume. But you're not fast enough. The water catches your right claw, the one you use most for feeding. The bristles on it singe. Some of them burn off completely. The bacteria living on them die instantly. You pull back farther, away from the heat, and examine your claw. Half the bristles are gone. The remaining ones are damaged. You try waving it in the chemical plume, but it doesn't work as well anymore. You can't farm as much bacteria. You'll have to rely on your left claw now, scraping what you can from the remaining bristles. But that's only half the food you were getting before. You're 3 years old now. You've molted several times, shedding your shell and growing a new one each time. The bristles on your damaged claw have grown back, but they're thinner than before. You're still at the same vent, still surrounded by other crabs, but something is changing. The water coming from the vent isn't as hot as it used to be. The chemical concentration is dropping. The vent is dying. You don't understand what that means yet, but you can feel the difference. Your bacteria aren't growing as fast. You're eating less, losing weight. Other crabs are starting to leave, crawling away from the vent, searching for another one. You follow a few of them, moving slowly across the seafloor. The journey is longer than you expected. Hours pass, then days. The water is freezing out here. Away from the vents, your body slows down in the cold. Your movements become sluggish. You pass the body of another Yeti crab lying on its back in the sediment, dead. You keep moving. You're still crawling when you finally sense it. Warmth. Chemicals. Another vent. You move toward it. Faster now, your legs working harder. When you reach it, you see dozens of other crabs already there, packed around the opening, waving their claws. You push into the group and find a spot near the edge. The water is warm again. The chemicals are strong. You extend your claws and wave them in the plume, feeling the bacteria on your bristles start to feed again. You scrape them off and eat. It's not much, but it's enough. You're alive, for now, but the vent you left behind is dead. And eventually, this one will die too. When it does, you'll have to move again and again, until one day, you're too weak to make the journey, or the next vent is too far away, or there are no more vents left to find. You're 5 years old now. You're at a different vent, your third one. This one is smaller than the others, less active. The chemical output is weak, and the heat is inconsistent, but it's all you could find. You're thinner now. Your shell is dull and cracked in places. You wave your claws slowly, barely able to scrape enough bacteria to sustain yourself. The other crabs around you look the same. Weak, starving. One morning, the vent stops completely. No heat, no chemicals, just cold water and silence. You wait for it to start again, but it doesn't. The other crabs begin to leave, crawling away in different directions. You try to follow, but your legs won't move properly. You're too weak. You collapse onto the seafloor and lie there, your claws still extended. The bacteria on your bristles slowly dying without chemicals to feed them. You stop moving after a few hours. Your body stays where it fell. Within days, scavengers find you, small amphipods and worms, crawling over your shell, tearing away pieces of your soft tissue. Your hairy claws are the last things to get picked apart. The bristles drift away in the current, carrying the dead bacteria with them. Nothing is left after a week, just an empty shell and some scattered legs. The vent is cold now, dead, and so are you. The Yeti crab spent its whole life farming bacteria on its arms just to survive, and when the vent died, so did it. But there's something else out there that has it even worse, something that can't leave when things go wrong. Watch the next video.